Hello viewers, Super GT here, welcome back. Thank you for joining me for another video. So we have a new track in Gran Turismo Sport called Autopolis, and we're going to be covering a great race we had around the track here in Group 2 cars. So this track was added as part of update 1.34 which came out last week, and to be honest I didn't even know that this track existed. Never heard of it before. In fact, when they added it, I saw the name Autopolis and I thought, okay, another fictional circuit, and normally the fictional circuits are really good on the game, so I was looking forward to it. But then I did some research and actually turns out that it's a real track. But that doesn't change the fact that it's actually a very good circuit, and the more I drive it, the more I like it actually. So just up ahead, Olympic going around the outside of R-Dog with a savage shove out of the way, and I'm going to follow him through as well, up into third, and continue the battle. So the main two cars you're going to see, or the only two cars I think you're going to see in the race, are what I'm driving here, the Honda NSX Raybrig, and then the car in the front there, and the car behind me, the Nissan GTR Motul Ortec. So probably the two best cars in Group 2. The Lexus doesn't quite match up, and then of course you've got the 08 cars which are just a couple of seconds off. So the circuit then, Autopolis, let's take a look at the circuit. As we start the next lap, I'll kind of go through my thoughts on it, and the more I've played it and the more replays I've watched and such like, the better I have got at it. It is a very difficult circuit, very technical, especially this final sector which we're going through now. Not an easy one to get right. I can give you my tips on it, and the driving I do here isn't always the best. I'm still kind of learning. This was my very first race in this week's race C. So we crossed the line. We're going to begin lap number 2, coming in towards turn 1 then. Looking for the 100 board on the left hand side, which we just actually skip away from there. We're looking for the 100 board, and you just really have to get as close as you can to the apex through turn 1, because it kind of has a weird bump as you go in. Quite a hard one to get right. There's a little pathway on the left hand side which you can brake on. You really have to carry a lot of speed for this one. And these left-handers really have to get as close as you can to the curbs. Really tempting just to get on the throttle and then drive away from them. And again for this one, just really hooking up with the curb on the inside. And that's the theme of the circuit. I've noticed you really do have to hug the inside as much as you really can through a lot of the turns. Get in early, turn in early, get hooked up with the apex, get hooked up with the curb, and just take a nice tight line all the way through the turn. And that seems to work through a lot of the corners. You see there, it's actually really easy to spot that I went deep into that turn. I didn't turn in very early, and David Perrell behind caught right up. So David Perrell, you've probably heard of him by now. I mentioned him a couple of times, and he too makes YouTube videos on Gran Turismo Sport, and he brings a unique perspective. He brings something different to the table because he is a real life racing driver, races in GT cars in Ferrari, so he has something different, the fact that he races for real in this type of car. Well, not Super GT cars, but fast GT tin top cars. He has experience, he has real life racing experience, and he can bring a lot of that experience into the game, and it does carry over. A lot of the experience, the things that you do in real life, can carry over. So this turn 1 here, really tricky because, as I said previous lap, it kind of goes over a little crest, so you can't always see the apex from when you're braking. So you do have to kind of turn in a little bit earlier than you might think. This one a little bit too wide of that apex, and these two left-handers really again just hooking up as close as you can. You don't always have to go to the far left here. Just really have to hook up with the apex, which I haven't really done. Come back for the late apex though, get a straight drive out through turn 7 and 8 here. Then the long left here, I was probably guilty of not turning in too early. So something I was doing that I noticed that wasn't working was I was sometimes turning in too late and trying to go for that late apex, trying to be clever with a straight exit. But I think overall it's quicker just to turn into the corner really quickly and hook up with the apex as early as you can. This fast sweeping downhill left, turn 12, really tricky corner. You carry loads of speed through it. Olympic going very slow, making the mistake another thing you'll notice about the track is really narrow, and I've gone really wide there. And that's going to put David Perel right on my tail now. You can see him on the radar, bottom left of the screen, or sorry, bottom right of the screen, and he's going to be looking for that move at some point. So the track is really narrow, it makes it really hard to overtake. So even if the guy ahead makes a mistake, they can still kind of just park their car on the racing line, and there's not much you can do about it. So you really are looking for a big mistake. Now I know that I've got a poor exit there. I'm going to keep over to the right hand side. David Perel, you can see him there, left hand side. So I've blocked him to the outside, and up the inside we go. Still got the inside line. We're just going to hook up with the apex. There was contact halfway through the turn, but I think it was okay. So we just keep third position for now. And you can see there, the pack very close behind. There's 6 of us here, 6 of us in this battle. So if you make one mistake and go off onto the grass, you're going to lose quite a few positions. It's one of those races where it's almost like it's a stalemate in many ways, because lots is happening, but at the same time not much is happening. We're all kind of going around in the same order, but we're all kind of being patient and waiting for something to happen later on in the race. So it's just about not making too many mistakes. Coming up towards the hairpin, tricky corner this, and again turning in too late. David Perel was going to see the opportunity to go up the inside, and I didn't really see him coming. It was a good move to go and use up that space, and there was a slight bit of contact, but he's through up into third with a very opportunistic move. Couldn't quite see it coming, but it definitely shows that my line wasn't right. I'm going too deep and going for that late apex, but it just doesn't work. You just need to get into the corner quicker. So going through into this final sector here, really satisfying when you get it right. It's just hard to get right. Coming up towards this final corner, this is a great example of a corner where you need to hook up with the apex and hook up with the inside of the corner. You'll see it throughout the race, and I get a bit of a slide halfway through, but you really do need to hug the inside of that corner as much as possible. So coming down towards turn 1, now I must say that this track is a really good track actually, and it's good that they are bringing lots of new circuits into the game, near enough one a month, which is always really good. It's always good to have new tracks. We're going to skip ahead 1 lap there, so a similar situation, although now Olympic JM on the back foot. So 12 divided by 2 equals 6 for those of you maths enthusiasts out there, which means on a one-stop strategy we're going to be coming in at the end of this lap. And it also means that the tyres are going to be at their most worn on this lap here, and you can see the front left especially very worn indeed. So front end grip is going to be really bad. I have to brake earlier than normal, I have to turn in earlier than normal, and that should kind of offset that a little bit, but of course the grip will be reduced compared to normal. Braking on that second board and trying to replicate David Perel's line there by just going into the corner a little bit earlier, struggling for grip on the way out, and the Spaniard behind looking ominously right behind us, so we can't really afford to make too many mistakes, as I've said. So we've got a very big group here, and it seems to be, as I've said, a stalemate. Because the track is so narrow, it is really hard to overtake. I just wonder if it might be a little bit better in group 3 or group 4. Maybe not, I suppose the cars are about the same size. But here, because the speed is so much higher, it is a lot harder to stay close to the car ahead and go for that pass if you can get one. So you can see here, hugging the apex, and you see how much I gain through the final corner. We're all going to come into the pit lane here. It's a very tricky pit lane, as I found out to my expense. An Olympic goes flying in, smashing all of the walls, both sides. The mechanic flexing his arm. Weird flex, but okay. And we come in for our stop. No need to have fuel changed or added, not changed, added, because the fuel was fine for this race. It's just all about the tyres. Where is JM? There he is. I was actually inside him. I was inside the Dutchman. It's not every day that you get to say that. And we come through turn 1. So I was really close to getting past him there. David Perel's actually got the job done, courtesy, of course, of that mistake that Olympic made going in, which slowed him right down. It is a really tricky pit lane, because I did this on my first live stream of this track. I went into the pit lane. I didn't know what the pit lane entry would be like, and I just went flying into the wall, not knowing that there's a really tight chicane. So lap 7 now, into the second half of the race. I think Olympic is going to want to try to pass David as early as possible if he can. I think David really did have the pace in that first stint. You can see that he kind of went past me, and he was onto the bumper of Olympic. So he looked like he was, out of this group at least, he was the quickest. So we've got the German VP Nico Neun. Excuse my pronunciation, but he's miles ahead, 10 seconds ahead at this point here. So he's absolutely flying. But out of this battle here, it's a very close battle indeed. You can see again as we pan out, there's still 6 of us. So it's a very, very close battle indeed. As we enter, or as we progress through the second half of the race, coming through the what turn is this? Turn 17, then into 18. As you can see now, right on the bumper of Olympic, who was on the bumper of David but made a mistake halfway through that lap. As we go onto the main straight once again, as we come up to start lap number 8. So tucked right into that slipstream. Look for the 100 board, there it is on the left hand side, just braking on that. Turning in slightly earlier, because the crest kind of negates your turning in, so you do have to turn in a little bit earlier, I think, to get the car to really meet that apex. They're coming up towards turn number 3. Really, really nice corner this, and it's a very technical section. I think the first sort of third of the lap, very, very technical, and then the final third of the lap, very, very technical, which makes it very difficult to get right. I think things I've said earlier, once you get those kind of things down, turn into the apex early, and I was doing it too late here. I was meeting too late of an apex, and it was costing me time. So get into the apex early and hug the inside as much as possible. Get really close to the curb. And by this point here, lap number 9, you see just how much I'm struggling. The gap opening up to 1.2 seconds up ahead. Olympic beginning to maybe put some pressure on David. He is quite close, but I was just falling back here. By coming through this turn, I think Olympic is going to make a mistake just coming up here. Going a little bit wide. You see here just how much you don't want to go all the way out to the left hand side there. So again, hugging the inside, and it works. So actually the gap down to 0.8 now. So I've just gained 4 tenths on Olympic, who has definitely made a mistake. A little bit wide there, but coming back for that late tailback. So really have to squeeze on the throttle coming out of that turn, and through a lot of the turns in fact. So crossing the line at the end of lap 9, you're going to skip towards lap number 11, the end of lap 10 though. So 2 1/4 laps remaining at this point here. Can we possibly go for the move on Olympic and get the podium, which would be very nice? Or will I have to settle for 4th, or maybe even get attacked for my 4th? Because of course the pack behind is very, very close indeed. So you mustn't discount the fact that I could lose a position, and I suppose you mustn't get complacent, because you could always go south. It could always improve, but it could always go worse as well. Okay, crossing the line, 2 laps left to go. Lap number 11 of 12. Firmly following that slipstream. You see just how well I'm following down this main straight to absolutely maximise and get every bit of slipstream possible. A little bit too deep into the first corner, courtesy really of that slipstream. You do of course have to brake a little bit earlier when you're in that slipstream, which I didn't really quite judge to perfection there. Okay, David Perrell making a bit of a mistake, but I think he's still okay at this point here, with maybe over a second of a gap to Olympic just here. So you see again, really hugging that inside line. I hug it so well actually I go into the back of Olympic. I was really taking that corner very nicely. So coming through the long left of 8 and 9, then up towards the hairpin, and not quite close enough to go for that move. He is making mistakes, and I did sense that in the first half of the race at least. You see there again, he's gone really wide, so I'm really onto him. We could definitely get this 3rd place. I sensed at the end of the first stint, so just before we went into the pits, around about lap 5 and 6, I noticed that he was making a lot more mistakes. So I think he was really struggling with the tyre wear. So I knew that even though by lap 9 you can see the gap was quite big, as he makes another mistake and there's contact between the two of us, I still sensed that there was possibility that I could attack and maybe get this position back, or get this position at the end of the race, because he was making mistakes with the tyres going off at the end of each stint. So once again, the front tyres, especially the front left, really beginning to die of death. Lots of long left-handers here. So crossing the line, here we go. 1 more lap left to go. Lap 12 of 12. We're on the front foot up against Olympic, with Big Batch just behind 2 Brits on our tail, around about 1.5 seconds behind at this point here. Can we go for the move? We are right on him, 2 tenths behind. In fact, going into turn number 3, he's gone defensive, which I'm not sure he needs to quite do that. But I suppose you can never be too safe. I don't think I was going to go for a lunge from that far back. It is a very difficult track to overtake around, and there's no way I was going to go for a move from that far back. Just really trying to keep as close as I can to him without making contact, and coming up towards the long left here. Can we keep it on the circuit very close to the curb, and then the car just understeering, or oversteering actually. Now correct it, just avoid the tyre wall, really close to hitting it. And I'm on the back foot now because we've got Big Batch just behind. 0.4 behind, in fact it's going to be less than that now on the radar. He's right, well in fact there was contact there, that's how close it is. We are so close that we are touching each other inappropriately. So come down the hill through the fast sweeping right hander into the tightening right hander here. Very easy just to really carry too much speed for this one. We want to kind of back off a little bit and sacrifice some speed for the left hander, and then keep it as early as as tight as you can. So my main priority now is just to keep the car as tight to the apex as possible, just give him zero room on the inside. He seems to have so much more grip than I do, the guy behind. There's no chance of getting third, so just keeping it as close as I can, giving him no room up the inside to go for that move. So the race really shifted there as we come across the line to finish in 4th position. The race really shifted from an attacking one, trying to get that 3rd position, to then having to defend for our lives to keep 4th. But overall, it was a good race. It kind of highlights how difficult it is to overtake around there. David Perel did a good job of getting through from, I think, 5th, from 5th on the grid to 2nd. And VP there in the lead, absolutely dominating by 12 seconds to 2nd. And there is the final standings, the final results. So not quite the fastest lap at all, but a solid race, and not too bad of a track either. I actually really enjoy the circuit. Let me know your thoughts on the Autopolis circuit, whether or not you like it or not, and I shall see you next time. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'll catch you in the next video. Goodbye.